Hi, and welcome to How to Stop Stuttering and Start Speaking. My name is Michael Williams, and I am really glad and excited that you found this website. The reason is because for over 20 years, as you probably already read, for over 20 years I used to stutter. And I used to stutter just like the guy in that movie, My Cousin Vinny. Why don't we take a look at that scene right now?
Counselor, your statement, sir.
Well, now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, on January 4th of this year, my client did indeed visit the Sackasud's convenience store, but he didn't kill anyone. We intend to prove that the prosecution's case is circumstantial and coincidental. Thank you.
That's it. What about everything we talked about?
Well, I get a little nervous.
A little nervous.
I'm getting better.
I heard a gunshot.
To be honest, that's one of my favorite scenes. Not because stuttering or stammering is a laughing matter, but just because the scene is funny and it reminds me of a time when I used to do that as well. And there were times when I would stutter and I would actually laugh at myself, but for the most part, it's not a laughing matter. What I want to do in this video is hopefully give you the confidence and the hope that you need to know that you can overcome stuttering, that you can stop stuttering and start speaking. I believe that you have something special to say, that there are people out there that only you can touch with your words, with your message, and that those people will never be touched if you're not able to overcome your stuttering. Now, I'm not going to hype up this program and tell you that overnight you're going to stop stuttering, and maybe for some people that is true. Maybe this program will do that for some people, but I want to set your expectations at a realistic level. For the average person, it's going to take you some time, it's going to take persistence, and it's going to be hard work, and it's going to be a struggle for the average person. Now, some people are going to get this program and they're going to dig into it and they're going to work and they're going to begin to see changes immediately. Other people, like myself, you're going to dig into the program and you're going to fight with it for 6 months before you see real lasting changes. But guess what? The time is going to pass anyway. The time is going to pass anyway. So why not do something that's going to help you stop stuttering and start speaking? So here's a little bit about my story. Yes, for about 20 years I stuttered from the time I was very young. I'd say 5 years old or so. I had a little stammer and it would come and go. But then something happened to me, and this gets to some of the reasons why people stutter. Something happened to me when I was about 12 or 13 years old. That was around 1980. I was living in long-term foster care, almost like being in an adopted home. My real birth mother couldn't take care of me and she left me in the hospital, and I'm glad that she did that. And I stayed there for about 6 months. I stayed in foster care for about 6 months until a wonderful family took me in and took care of me, and they're still my family now. And during that time, I had a chance to see my real mother. Never met my real father, but I had a chance to visit with my real mother. But she apparently felt like just coming in and out of my life was not going to be helpful. So around in 1980, she calls me up and she says that she feels like she wants to break contact with me. She doesn't want to keep coming in and out. She wants me to just stick with that current family and grow up with them. And so I didn't know what to think about that, but I know that my foster parents saw a change in me after that time, and they saw my stuttering become very severe. And so one of the reasons that people stutter is because of a traumatic, emotional, or physical event. This is not the case with all people. With some people, it's actually something that's physical. Okay, with many of us, it's physiological. It can be emotional. And so for me, I believe it was physiological, it was psychological, emotional. And so my stuttering got worse, and it kind of stayed that way until I was in my mid-20s. Now, there were times when I would read books and try to work on my self-esteem, self-confidence. I took martial arts, I did everything. And there would be just different cycles where I wouldn't stutter as bad, but I still stuttered. There were times when I would try to say something and I would literally be stuttering and I would bite my tongue or bite my lip. It was very embarrassing. I learned how to cover it over and just not do anything, so people would think that I was thinking. So people thought, this guy is just a deep thinker. He's really pondering over this thing. And yes, I was thinking about how not to show them that I was stuttering. Another thing that used to just terrorize me was when I had to read in public. And I'll tell you too, I still don't like to be called on to read in public, but I've kind of overcome that for the most part. So I'd be sitting in class or sitting in a workshop or a course or something, and I'd say, okay, Johnny, you read this, and I'm number 5, and there's several passages, and I know it's going to get to me, and I just used to become absolutely frightened because I knew I was going to have to read. And that was one thing that I hated to do, because you never knew when I'd get stuck on certain words. Or when I'd be called on to say something on cue. And once again, that's something I still really don't like to do. It's kind of some leftover fear. But as I shared with you, hopefully something that you read is I later became an ordained minister. I became a professor, which I still do now. I teach workshops and seminars. I record videos and audio. I even read in public. And so I don't really have a problem with that anymore, but I did have a problem with it because I stuttered. The other thing that you can probably identify with is that it messes with your self-esteem and your confidence. Imagine trying to speak to a girl, or if you're a girl, trying to speak to a guy, and you never know when you're going to just get stuck and not be able to say anything. So it messes with you in your relationships and your career. Certain careers are going to be more challenging if you have to do a lot of talking. So it kind of limits your career choices and therefore possibly your income and your health, because there's this constant stress and pressure of, am I going to be able to say this, or am I going to stutter, am I going to get stuck? And this again messes with your self-esteem and your confidence. I remember one time where I had worked through it and I was able to deal with it, but I became a second lieutenant in the reserves, and I was promoted up to first lieutenant, and we were going through some training, and I was in charge of a whole class of my peers. And so I was standing in front of my platoon and I needed to give them a command, and I got stuck. I froze up, couldn't say anything, so I had to call my platoon sergeant up to give the command. Now later I explained to the class what happened, but still there had been some erosion of confidence in their leader because I couldn't say what I needed to say. So these are just some of the things that I had to deal with that I'm sure you've had to deal with in one way or another, and that's why you're on this site. I've seen some other programs out there, and I would encourage you to check out as many programs and as many websites as you can, because I did a lot of that. In fact, there weren't the same kinds of resources or access to the resources when I was coming up. And so it's wonderful that you have access to those things. One of the things that I will say